Final Four episode of the Huddle. Ninja here with regular March Madness rotation, Tony Farmer and John Henson. No Cinderella, no problem, because both of these Final Four games look to be potential classics. Let's talk Duke Houston here. It is Houston's incredible defense against, the best team in the country right now. Duke is the 4.5-point fave as we sit here on a Monday afternoon. The total 136.5. Houston unders have been solid. 3 have hit in their 4 tournament games. Houston has gone 2-1-1 against the spread. The push came against Gonzaga. Duke 3-1 against the spread so far. Over is 3-1 as well. The only under was against Alabama, which didn't even come particularly close to that 174.5 closing total. Tony, the highest combined Ken Pom rating for a tournament game ever, which goes back to 1997. Duke net rating 39.62. Houston net rating 36.49. Is this game the real final?
I can't wait. This is going to be a fun game to watch. I think that's a little disrespectful to Auburn and Florida to say this game is the real final. Honestly, I think whatever combination of 2 teams we get in the championship, I think it's going to be a good competitive game no matter what. But I cannot wait to watch this game. Not only, as you said, are they the 2 highest ranked Ken Pom teams, but the way they each won their last game, destroying their opponent. These 2 teams are playing their best right now. It is going to be a blast. I think it's going to be a really, really game. I think we're due for a nice dramatic overtime finish in this game. How does that sound?
The recipe is there. Like, these, not only are these the highest 4 ranked teams in Ken Pom this year, these are 4 of the highest ranked Ken Pom teams ever.
Right.
John, we talked last week about Duke and how dominant they look, but now maybe their best performance could very well have come against Alabama. How surprised were you by how easy that game appeared to be for Duke?
Well, what do the kids do now when they score? Like, that's what Duke did to Alabama. They were just too small. They only shot 13 threes. They were going at the Alabama guards. You're too small. We're more physical. And I personally think it's going to be more of the same in the Final Four. Houston has smaller guards and, guards that are going to have a tough time guarding 6'6" Zion James and the 6'5" Proctor and Flagg and Knipple. These are big boys. And yes, they have the defense, but, I talked to Jay Billis today on a Sirius, and he brought up a good point. He said, listen, Duke's going to score. That defense, sure, for all its accolades, yes, they're going to be fine. But Duke is going to score. Will Houston be able to score on Duke is the real question. And, you just don't know, because Houston, they're a better offensive team than they have been in the past, hence why they're probably in the Final Four. But from a matchup perspective, size, athleticism, guard play, perimeter play, even with the bigs, with Malawach, it's going to be interesting. Is Duke going to be able to pass out of those traps and those quick double teams? They're not Zakai Ziegler, who's short and couldn't see. Zion James and Proctor can see the defense. They can pass. Oh, by the way, you said that Cooper Flagg, you got Cooper Flagg in the middle, creating with 2 shooters in the corner. So when I look at it from a basketball perspective, it's a tough matchup for Houston personnel-wise. But fortunately for basketball, that's not all that matters. Duke's got to hit shots. Houston's got to hit shots. So it's going to be an interesting matchup. A fun one. I'm most excited to see this because historically these are teams – the only team that's really beat Duke when they are the best are teams like Houston. Mature, strong, athletic, bullies, right? That's the only thing that Duke has had trouble with the last 15 years, because they do have 3 18-year-olds. So, yes, definitely a tough matchup for Houston, but also a very tough matchup for Duke going into the championship.
Houston has those dogs, and like the old boxing adage is styles make fights. And like you said, like this is that one where there's interesting makeup on both sides, on both of these teams. And it's going to be a very, very interesting X's and O's game. It's going to be a very interesting skill guy game all across the board here. So one potential angle that I was thinking about, Tony, but the Final Four is in Texas, it's in San Antonio. Can we look at maybe an element of home court advantage for Houston here? It's short travel for the Houston fan base, or is that a bunch of nothing?
No, I think there's something to that. I think it might help a little bit. Just don't think that you're going to outsmart the odds makers. You know, they know this game's in Texas as well. I think that's already accounted for. But certainly, if you're a fan in Texas and you got a short drive as opposed to a long flight or something like that, I think we can expect a few more Houston Cougars fans. But I also wouldn't expect a home game type atmosphere. I think something between a home game and a neutral court might help a little tiny bit.
And Duke is certainly the more national brand, or has the larger fan base coast to coast as it stands anyway. John, you touched on this a little bit, but Houston, the best defense in the country, top defense rating per KenPom. They shut it down against Tennessee in that first half. The 15 first half points were the absolute lowest by a top 2 seed in tournament history from Tennessee. Can Houston bring that same level and that same defensive intensity and effectiveness against Duke? Or is it, like you said, there's just too many weapons in this Duke Blue Devils roster?
I think they can be effective in defending Duke. I'll talk about that's really one of my picks per se, but it's kind of leaning towards Duke. But I think they can be effective. But like I said, no one is going to stop Duke from scoring. They just have too much size and athleticism. So I love these are two high level defenses, right? So it's kind of like they're going to meet in the middle and neutralize each other defensively. Who offensively is going to be the better team? And I think Andre Dawkins said it best. Duke's plan B is probably better than every team in the Final Four and their plan C, right? So that's kind of what I'm looking at, right? If you want to take away whatever you want to take away, Duke's plan B, Conk and Nipple, right? Even Proctor, for example. Hey, look, you let Proctor start going. I mean, the way Proctor's shooting, and when he's open, it looks. I mean, he's confident as I've ever seen him. So, along with Cyan James, who arguably is their, full point guard, right? It's 6'6", 245. So, who's going to guard him? LJ Cryer, right? Like, I don't know, right? He kind of made a point to kind of when he gets somebody that's smaller on him, he attacks. He's aggressive to start the game out. I mean, look at him. He looks like an NFL linebacker. So who's going to guard him? We haven't even talked about him yet.
Let's finish it off with the picks then. And John Henson, I'll start with you. Houston, 4.5-point faves here against Houston. What are you looking at here?
I couldn't find the specific number of Duke team total, but when you look at Houston and they have lost, and I do think Duke beats Houston, it's been over 70 points. Auburn had 74, Alabama had 85 against them. And you see what they did to Alabama. And Texas Tech had 82, right? So you split up the total 136.5, that's 68 minus 4.5. So you figured Duke's team total is going to be around 72, 71, 73, something like that. I love that number. If you think Duke is going to win and you don't want to play with that spread, you go team total, because when Houston loses, they allow pretty much 70 to 80 points. And I think Duke's going to clear that number. Houston's going to have to put the ball in the hole. I say it once, I'll say it again.